Hi, it's Adam here. Welcome to the part 4 of our journey with self-hosted CI/CD agents and Azure Kubernetes Service. In this episode, we will talk about self-hosted runners in Azure DevOps. Here's how our workflow will look like. We'll push the changes to GitHub. Due to service connection between GitHub and Azure DevOps will be informed that there is new change in the GitHub repository. It will send the job to the Kubernetes where the self-hosted runner application is running. We'll build the image, push the image to container registry, and then we'll deploy the application, which will use the image from the container registry. Since this is the fourth and last episode, I will not walk you through how to set up the Azure Kubernetes Service. I encourage you to check the part 1, part 2, and part 3, where I walk you through step by step how to set it up. I also included the GitHub repository with all the files that you need. Here is the script with all the steps that you need to provision the Kubernetes service. So let's jump right into the Azure DevOps and set up everything. See you there. And we are in the Azure DevOps. This is my demo organization. I already created the project. Let's go to the project. And here we will set up the pipeline. But first, let's create the personal access token. We will need that token to authenticate from the runner to Azure DevOps. Let's create it. Let's call it register runner. And the scope of our privileges needs to be, we need to manage the agent pool and also need to manage deployment groups. So that will be efficient. Let's copy that to the clipboard. Of course, I will delete it just after the video, so don't use this token. Let's close it. Now let's go back to DevOps. And let's go to project settings. Here we will create our agent pool. You need to have administrative permissions to create such pool. Let's go add pool. It will be self-hosted. Let's call it DevOps on AKS, and let's create it. You can see it's empty. There are no agents. When we will click the new agent, here and Linux, here you can see the instructions how to set up this runner. But to make it more easier for us, I already created the Docker file. Let me show you. I already created the Docker file with the new version of that agent. And also I added Azure CLI and also kubectl. So we will use that Docker file. Let's build the image and let's push it to our registry. As I mentioned before, we already set up the AKS and the Azure Kubernetes Service and the container registry and the identities. So this everything we have set it up. Let's go to repositories, and in a moment we should be able to see the image. when we will push it. And we have our image in the repository. Right now, let's create two Kubernetes objects, storage class and persistent value claim. We'll create the persistent value claim in the DevOps namespace. Let's create that two objects. And right now we can create the runner. We will use the Kubernetes deployment object. We'll also add that we will use workload identity, so we'll need to add that label. Here you have to, if you will follow along with me, you need to add the correct Azure repository name here. And that's all. I already changed that file, so I can create the deployment. Deployment is created. Let's see if our pod will be created. Let's wait a moment. And our pod is running. Right now we can start to configure the runner. We are inside the pod. Let's start to configure our runner. Here we accept all the licenses. As for the URL, we need to provide our address to the server. So this is this part. The address for the Azure DevOps and then the organization name. For the authentication, we'll use the PAT token. Here we can provide the PAT token which we created earlier. And right now, as you can see, we try to connect. Right now we need to provide the pool name. This is our pool name. And this is the agent name. So this is the name of the pod which we created. Let's leave it like that. And you can see the connection is created. So our agent appears here. We'll use the default work folder. And that's it. So the first step to create the runner and configure it to connect to our DevOps is done. Next, we can run the runner. Let's see if it will be able to connect. Okay, as you can see, we are connected and we are listening for the jobs. And the status of our runner just changed from offline to online. We can automate that process. We can create the entry point with the script to do all these steps for us. So this is like the next step of automation to create to configure and create the runner. So finally, we can go and test it. We'll create the pipeline. Let's go to pipelines. Let's create the pipeline. We'll use the GitHub. We will use that repository. And we will use existing YAML file since I already created sample pipeline for that demo. We'll use the main branch. And the pipeline is located in that path. To correct the container registry name. So let's go back to the Azure and here is our registry name. Let's go back to the pipeline. Okay, it looks good. So just I will walk you through that file. Here we define the pool that we will use. This is our self-hosted pool, self-hosted runner pool. And here we'll log in to the Azure using workflow identity and federated token. We'll build the image using Azure build command. In the previous episodes, I showed you different building possibilities, so you can check the episode 1, 2, and 3 for other options. Here we will get the credentials to our cluster. We will use kubelogin, and we'll let them know that we use workload identity. And here we will deploy our application. We will use our image and our tag. Let's save and run it. Okay, so the build already started. Let's check. We need to add the permissions first. So let's permit to run the job. As you can see here, the status has changed. That we are running the build. Let's see all the steps. Here we check out the code. Here we'll try to log in. And we have the error with the login. So let's debug it. After short debugging, I managed to run the izit command, and let's rerun the job and see if we manage to show everything this time. So the job was picked up by the runner, and let's see the details. Here we check out our repository. Here we will log in, and here we build the image, and we will push that image to Azure. Right now we will get the AKS credentials, and we will deploy our sample application. So as you can see, all the steps finished with success. Here we have the confirmation that the job was completed. And let's check. Here you can see also that we are running on our pool. And we are using our agent, which was running on the pod. And right now, let's see if the application was created. So let's exit the pod. And let's check running pods. Here you can see that our demo application was just deployed. So we managed to successfully run the pipeline. So this was the last episode and our journey with the self-hosted agents on Azure Kubernetes Service. I must say that I like the GitHub Actions and Azure DevOps the most. Then I would prefer Jenkins, and the last setup and the last place I think goes to Circle CI. But as you know, it always depends on the project and what we need, what our customer needs. So it really depends, as always. I encourage you to check the episode 1, 2, 3. I will post the links in the description. And if you have any questions or maybe idea for the other episodes, let me know. Other than that, see you in the next video. Thank you.